What up, y'all? It's Raina and Shireen from Power Pump Girls, the podcast, your go-to resource for all things womanhood, social issues, and the hustle.
So this is our very first episode. I'm really excited. We want to use this episode to bring you up to speed on 3 years of building Power Pump Girls.
Yes.
That includes social impact and building a merch line and advocacy in the community.
Yes.
So let's hop right in.
Woo! Exciting. I'm super pumped for this podcast. And the number one question we always get is, how did we meet? We get asked this all the time, so I feel like we should just get out of the way. They're always asking, are you best friends? Did you know each other forever? What's the answer?
So the answer is yes, we are best friends. First of all, pause. This is Raina's favorite question.
Yeah.
She always just faces it head on. We actually met in a kitchen.
And that sounds like a really bad joke.
It kind of is.
Whose kitchen was it?
So we met in our ex-boyfriend's kitchen, and Raina was about to graduate college.
Yeah.
And I remember walking up to her. I don't remember if you were cooking or if I was cooking.
Probably together.
Yes. And so I walk up to Raina, and I'm like, okay, so you're about to graduate. What do you plan on doing with the rest of your life?
Yeah, and I really didn't have an answer, but for us, it was really fate. Like, I knew when I met Shireen that it was meant to be because we wore the same size shoe. And I was like, up until this point in my life, I had friends, but like it just sealed the deal that we wore the same size shoe. So I made the leap and we started our very first company together in that kitchen.
Yes, and
the
so
kitchen
actually
that belonged to
our ex-boyfriends, which we really do owe them each other. Like, this was a really big deal for us.
Yeah.
When Raina and I met, we like instantly clicked. And we've been inseparable ever since. I love her family. She loves my family. We visit each other for the holidays. Like, I just said this today on my Instagram that I pray this type of friendship for every woman because it's so important that you have a girlfriend that just gets you and also wears the same size shoe as you.
that part. So yeah, that's why we're really excited about today and launching this podcast. It's a new journey for the both of us. We've worked together in so many different capacities in the past, and we just feel as though this is our year to use our voice and our platform to bring forth more fun and exciting stuff. So again, we're going to track you through 3 years worth of 3+ years. I keep saying 3.
It's been a long time, 5 years plus.
Of Power Pump Girls magic. So take this journey with us.
So, okay, let's start in 2015 because that is when we actually met in the kitchen. And we were planning a birthday party for our then boyfriends. And while we were planning this, we were also having the conversation of, so what do you plan on doing when you graduate?
Yeah.
And so we threw this birthday party. We had like a $500 budget that was
so cheap.
Our personal money. And hey, when you look back on it, $500 of your own money,
it's an investment.
Okay, thank you. Didn't go well. So with that investment, Raina and I decided that we would put on this birthday party. And during the process, we both found out that we were just like really good at bringing people together, logistics, and we knew how to run a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, we really found our niche with working with one another, and we were like, okay, this is special because we're people, but we've never found like this ease of working with someone else. And so we were like, where can this go? And so, you know, naturally we were like, let's be event planners. We had no idea what we were doing. But we started a corporate events company, and from there we're able to grow our network and really meet people and kind of establish ourselves as business women in the community, which was really pivotal for both of us in our career. I was fresh out of college, and Shireen was still fresh out and, you know, kind of establishing herself in the community. So it was a fun time where we learned a lot.
So I actually think back to when we dubbed ourselves like corporate event planners. We had only thrown a birthday party.
That's it.
We were not at all corporate event planners, but one thing about our relationships as friends is I am the person who, we just talked about this the other day, I will hop in the car and drive without knowing exactly where I'm going.
Yep.
And that's like when I'm looking for food, that's with my business, that's with work, like everything. I just get in the car and I go. And Raina is the friend that's like, but what time are we going? And where are we going? And
I'm in the car. Yeah, I'm in the car with her.
She's in the car.
But we're figuring out as we
details,
go.
And I don't. And so that's exactly what happened. I was like, hey, look, we're just going to start telling people we are corporate event planners. And that's how we got our start. And then you know what else is funny? I think about the time we were in the library and we were trying to figure out how we were going to pay for a branding kit.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
That was hilarious.
We had many nights in libraries at your old apartment complex in that study room.
Yep.
That's literally where we filed for our business certification and came up with lots of ideas in those early days and just trying to map out what it meant to own your own business and run your own business and be these two entrepreneurs, I guess. So
these corporate event planners.
Early days of the hustle. But fast forward, we had always been trying to figure out another way to like really dig our feet in and be like pivotal in the community and really involved. And so in 2017 is when Power Pump Girls was birthed.
Yeah.
At that point, we had kind of slowed down on the events, but we're still trying to make a name for ourselves and really be entrepreneurs, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that's one of your other favorite stories.
Boom. So there was this one time, this girl walks into a burrito shop.
Another joke.
But for real, Raina was on lunch and she was wearing these lovely fuchsia, magenta, whatever color you see.
These are the original Power Pumps.
They match your lips today. So cute. So yeah, these were the original pumps. Raina is in line at Izzo's Burrito. It's a local burrito joint here in town. And she's on Snapchat and she takes a picture of her heels and then she captions the picture, Power Pump Girl.
Mm-hmm.
And what did I do?
Well, you immediately messaged me, and I will just pause and say it's the biggest regret of my life that I didn't save that Snapchat story because, you know, they disappear after 24 hours.
Yeah.
And I wish I still had that memory from, like, the day Power Pump Girls was birthed. But, yeah, I was just feeling myself that day in these pink shoes. So I tagged Power Pump Girl, and, of course, Shireen was like, this is something. We need to make a business. We need to start something.
Driving the car, nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go. We had no idea what Power Pump Girls was. But I actually got a lot of messages that day. People were like, what's Power Pump Girl? And so the messaging obviously resonated with people. And so, per usual, we just filed and made it a business.
And that was one of those special nights in the clubhouse in my old apartment complex. Mm-hmm. Like, we were literally like, LLC, we need $80. And I don't even think we had $80 because
Probably
the truth
not.
is our events company
was slowing down.
Yeah, we were slowing down. And that was never our full-time gig. That was a side hustle.
Let's talk about it.
So side hustles kept us afloat, but it also kept like our engineering juices like going.
Yeah. And our networks. Like people would see, like when we're at our day jobs, we're talking about our side hustles.
Yeah.
So they would see we were really about that life and like we really want to grow this to be something we do full time. So it built our network and our validity in what we did because people heard us talking about it all the time.
So let's talk about the first brunch because that's where we married like our idea of events company with how to serve our community.
Yeah, so we threw a brunch because at the time that was kind of becoming a thing here.
Yeah.
It was getting hot. It was hot everywhere else. So we were like, let's hop on the trend and throw a brunch. And so we threw an event, which we were great at, for what we thought was just our close friends and family, and ended up being a community-wide event where we celebrated women in business. We allowed them to network with one another. We did some intentional activities. And we really saw the birth of Power Pump Girls in that moment and how we were gifted with bringing people together with intention and creating moments that were memorable but also impactful in that way.
And still very much so a side hustle.
Very much a side hustle.
Because I think we used our own money for that. We called on our network like, hey, can you make brunch for us for free? Like, hey, I literally remember all of our friends showed up to the venue the night before and we were setting the table and we were like taking pictures, making sure the audio and tech was working. Like we really still put our all into it, even though it was like a side thing for us.
On a little budget.
On a very tiny shoestring budget. And it was just important for us that we created a space where women would feel comfortable, a space where they would intentionally have conversations and connect. We had girls who started businesses with each other after that brunch.
It was beautiful.
And they're still business partners to this day. man.
That was a good time.
Yeah.
So we used that like as the, springboard for that first year where we just hosted events because that's what we knew. And so we were like, we're good at bringing people together. We're good at creating space. So we just did a series. It was workshops. It was social meetups, just different gatherings where we would always want to have some sort of takeaway, but we were kind of just winging it in that first year. And we're like, let's just throw these events, things that we would want to go to. We were creating those spaces for women in that first year. So after that, we kind of were like, what can we do to make this more foundational and more like long lasting and sustaining?
She lying, y'all. What really happened was
What happened?
the girls in our community were
You're right.
can you do more? And we were like, what you mean? This is a side hustle.
Right.
We're not getting paid for this.
Still not getting paid.
Like, what do you mean? Can we do more? Can you do more? Can we do more together? But that's what ended up happening. They were pushing us.
They called us out.
They did. Hey, I get it. You're this women's networking group, but when we get together, how can we actually, mobilize and do things in our community?
Yeah.
Which brings us to 2018.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So that's when we started doing like our give back program. So that year is when Secured was birthed.
I think so.
And that came out of a trip. We were like, we were in New York City for your birthday.
Yep.
And it was very much like an awakening moment when we didn't want to ride the subway. We didn't want to be around all these people. Pause to say that it was because of a measles outbreak at the time. But we were really cautious about how we were interacting with people. And in a sense, we're kind of being bougie. And we were like, we want to take cabs and Ubers. And we kind of had a self-reckoning of like, that's really privileged.
We're privileged, yeah.
That's very privileged. And then that conversation between us and our friends became, oh, we only ever see privilege as white privilege or racial privilege. And in that moment, we were privileged to have choice.
Mm-hmm.
And
we were literally paying $50 an Uber ride one way.
Yeah. So to be able to choose our mode of transportation and have the funds to do so was very privileged. And so we came back home. We're like, okay, well, how can we use privilege and address that topic, but to use it for good and to help others? And knowing that our network within Power Pump Girls had some area of privilege across the board was like, okay, how can we, mobilize these women with their privilege to help? So of that came Secured, which was our in-house initiative to address period poverty.
And in true nature, once we found where we were going, we booked a hotel
Full speed
room.
ahead.
Yeah, remember we booked a hotel room at the Renaissance, and we did a staycation with one of our other friends, and we were like, let's really build and map this thing out. Who are we serving? Why are we serving them? And how are we serving them?
Yeah.
And so, we were watching videos about it and about how much of an issue it was across the country. And then we started identifying little pockets in our own city. And we were like, okay, this is something that we can address.
Yeah.
And it's something that weaved us all together as women it was our menstruation.
Yeah. And it was beautiful. It fit our
brand,
organization and our brand so well because we were a women's empowerment group and we were addressing this issue that directly affects women. And so once we found the data, we put out the information and we created, segments and ways for people to get involved. It just took off. And it was like, okay, obviously this was a need in our community and this was something we could address and help to, change collectively. So it was really, really beautiful. Also around that time, we were mentoring in elementary school.
Which was really fun. So we went to a local school, Gardier Christian Academy School. I'm messing it up.
GCCS.
That's the name of it.
It's called.
But they had a group of young girls. And so, Rain and I's background, we did not come from money. And so community and giving back as we got older and began to start making money and grew our networks, we wanted to be rooted back in the same community that provided for us in some capacity. Mm-hmm. And so it was important for us to be mentors and an example for young girls who also come from a background that maybe is not financially privileged, and how can we help them? And so, we sat in that room and these girls had stories that literally, when me and Raina would leave, we would be in tears.
Yeah.
Girls who are having conversations with us and they're 6 or 7.
It was elementary age. Yeah. And it was cool because we saw ourselves in them, but it was really beautiful for us to recognize they saw themselves in us.
And they were so strong. Some of their parents were in prison and deceased, and they were dealing with all of these issues at such a young age.
Yeah. It was cool too to have that representation, but then also that connection to them. Personally, we left every day, like Shireen said, feeling so much more of a relationship with them, and that we were growing as they were growing. So that was a beautiful moment. And we wrote that entire curriculum.
We did. That was funny. Again, driving in the car.
Doing things we're not qualified for and just going with it. But
we'll have another podcast about qualifications
Yeah.
because we should really talk about that.
we have some stories about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we saw the need and we addressed it and didn't care about, you know, a checklist of things that we should do beforehand. So that was a beautiful moment around that time. But that's when we were really figuring out that impact model and like how we got into the community.
Because here's the thing, like sometimes you really do just have to jump and figure it out on the way down because still this entire timeline that we're discussing, we really still had no idea what Powerpump Girls was going to be, how it was going to function in society. We were just like piecing pieces together as we were going along.
Figuring out.
And I still think that's true to this day. I think that your hustles, your organizations, your brands, your companies, your life, like everything should always be evolving. And so as Raina and I grow and evolve, so does Powerpump Girls, and so does the community of women that are a part of it.
Yep.
And so now we can talk about like LA.
What up, y'all? It's Raina and Shereen with Powerpump Girls, the podcast, and we just want to take a moment to thank our amazing sponsor, Achroma Studios, which is the beautiful loft that we're in right now. They offer amazing studio space for all your creative projects right off of Government Street in Baton Rouge. They have this amazing loft, and then they also have a studio downstairs that you can book out to do your photo shoots, your events, your recordings, just like us. So we want to thank them for sponsoring this podcast and being an amazing partner and asset to this community.
Welcome back, everybody. Raina and Shereen here again from Powerpump Girls,
the podcast.
Your go-to resource for
womanhood, social issues, and the hustle.
Period.
That's
All
on
right.
Powerpump.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Wow.
we're going to resume the story and the evolution of Powerpump Girls. We are now in 2019.
Yep.
And something we've always been intentional about, even when we were event planners, was continued education and just putting ourselves in spaces that will grow us and help us to learn. And so we were at the Girl Boss Rally. If you do not know Girl Boss or Sophia Amoroso, you need to look into that.
She's a badass.
So it was a conference, and we were looking to glean conference logistics from that, networking with other boss-like women, and just like the whole experience. So while we're there, we're just on go, per usual, nonstop, Energizer bunnies. And one of our friends made the comment, like, you guys just don't breathe. Like, you don't come up for air. You haven't stopped. And Shereen just spit out without stopping or thinking. She's like, well, if you can't hustle, you can't hang. And we both literally were like, stop. That's a thing. Just like the Powerpump Girls moment, we were like, oh my God, that's a thing. So we kind of just took note of it and kept going on about our trip.
Yeah.
And then when we came back, we had a workshop with a friend. We're like, how do we make this like a phrase, a slogan, a something? And out of that evolved Only Hang with Hustlers, which
is our staple. It's
our
baby.
thing. And what was beautiful about that was that it opened up the Powerpump Girls community to more than just women and girls. And now guys were like, yo, I resonate with that message. Like, I only hang with hustlers. I am a hustler. Yeah. And so we were like, how do we include them in this message and in this movement? And it was through merchandise. And so we started with really basic tees, slapping it on a
good
shirt.
Old Gildan 5000.
Selling those. And then now that's evolved into a whole pillar of its own within Powerpump Girls, is that intentional merchandise and merch with a message that really brings people together and builds community within itself. Because if you're walking around with that t-shirt and I feel you, I want to know where you got that so I can be a part of it.
Yeah.
So
we still freak out when we see people that we don't know with
in
a
our
shirt
shirt
on. Or like if we get an order on Shopify and it's from like Seattle or Florida and we have no idea who it is. Because like the first batch was like all of our friends.
Yeah.
And then like the second batch was like, oh crap, like this person in DC wants a shirt. How did you even find us?
Yep. And the network's grown. Like as people wear it and they travel or their friends see it, they want to be part of it. So it's always so cool to see. If you can only imagine where we came from. Only Hang with Hustlers.
A moment. So last year was 2020.
Oof. Pause. Moment of silence.
Right. It was a very tough year.
Yeah.
A lot of people we know lost a lot of things, including, family members and friends, colleagues, jobs, homes, vehicles, you name it. It was just a really tough year. And like we've been talking about, Raina and I have kind of positioned ourselves to be social impact strategists, social impact engineers. And so we, as we're evolving and the world is evolving, now we are considered to be the go-to women to help put together some strategies to mobilize people in our community. And so then we came up with a process because we wanted to be able to copy and paste this. And so our process became REM, which was also like godsend.
I know.
And I remember when that happened, I would call Raina. I was like, oh my God, like I got it. Like in a dream state, when you're in your deepest like moment of sleep and you have the most activity, it's REM. And like that's what we live in.
And when you're dreaming and you're in REM, sometimes you're moving.
Yeah.
And so our REM model, REM, is rally, educate, mobilize, and it's to mobilize people behind these impact efforts. And it was like, that's perfect. That's exactly what we do. So we use that to create more impact opportunities outside of Secured. We did blood drives this year or this past year.
Then we drove to Lake Charles for
hurricane relief. But we use that REM model on everything. And now if ever there's an issue or something we want to address, we're like, okay, copy and paste REM. How are we getting people excited? What's the stats and facts behind it? And then what are they doing? How are we mobilizing them? So that's been exciting.
So during this whole process, again, in a car, don't really know where we're going. I'm going to keep referencing that because
or in a kitchen.
It's really true. Yeah, we're in a kitchen. But it's really true, and you never really know who's watching, and so it's always really important to just do the work.
Yeah.
Keep your head down, make sure your heart is in the right place, make sure you're setting your intentions. And I would say at the end of last year, Raina and I got a few big surprises and phone calls that like really, number one, made us cry because we're crybabies, but two, it really allowed us to see our work in the world actually making a difference. And so the first call we got back up. We did a crowdfunding campaign.
Oh yeah. So in 2020 we did it, which is what kind of catalyzed the stuff you're talking about. We had to do a crowdfunding campaign because
we had no money.
Our main revenue generator for Power Pump Girls was events. And so with COVID, that obviously got cut out. So we did a crowdfunding campaign through iFund Women, which was an amazing platform that opened up a lot of these opportunities. So we raised close to $30,000 on the platform. And then we applied for this grant opportunity that was also a program.
And didn't even think about it after.
Didn't. We just submitted the thing.
Yeah.
It was like, hopefully this helps. And got selected to be part of a group of 100 Black-owned or Black-run organizations through American Express, which was huge.
And so American Express put their money where their mouths were.
Quite
they cut
literally.
us a $25,000 check. They connected us with, like Raina said, 100 other Black women-owned businesses and resources for 100 days that are meant to help us grow. And so what you are seeing right now with our podcast is definitely a manifestation of those things. We got those dollars and we put together a plan and we were like, okay, how do we continue to grow and scale past where we are in Louisiana? Because we feel like the world, and you included, deserves to be a part of this awesome community that we are building, and we want you here. And so
here we are in 2021. So that was a really amazing opportunity. And then this year, so we started seeing Power Pump Girls in a different light. We've always been unconventional.
Always.
We've always done things outside of the norm. Again, in the kitchen, jumping in the car, just figuring it out as we go. But we kind of started to frame it together. And now that's 4 years in? So message to that, it doesn't come overnight. It's not immediate.
Absolutely not.
But we're now able to frame up. We're like, okay, Power Pump Girls is a resource. We provide educational components. We provide, space for women to have conversations, or women and men, to have conversations that may be unconventional or uncomfortable, but that need to be had. And then we provide opportunities or ways and a framework to mobilize in your community, to be that voice, to be that leader. And so that comes in different forms, but for us, merchandise and now media with this podcast are kind of our two avenues that we're able to reach people and then use whatever that is that's coming back to us to, change the world and change the community. So
Raina,
I'm really excited.
What can they expect from us in 2021 with this podcast? What are the conversations we're having? Give us an example.
Okay. Well, one of them we're going to talk about is like how to tell your friends to pull up, which is true to us as people. Like, we don't give our friends a choice. We're like, hey, we're going to go and do this thing in the community and you're going to be a part of it. Hey, friend, you want to start your job? Let's do it. Like, let's map this out. And so that'll be some of the topics we do. How to turn your side hustle into your main hustle, which is something we've both successfully done. Womanhood, wellness, women's rights issues.
We'll also be like wearing some of our merch here and there because we are not ashamed of putting ourselves out there.
Product placement.
Yes, we will definitely be sponsoring our own podcast every now and then.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I think the conversations will be the two of us. We'll involve some other people, but I think it'll be thought-provoking and educational at the same time.
Yeah.
And we hope to just use this platform for good, like everything else we've done.
So what we are asking of you today is we don't know where this car is going, but we would love for you to hop in the car with us as we take this journey, as we take this drive. Rain and I are very transparent. We're authentically ourselves, and we are not shy or ashamed of that. And so we would love for you to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Tune in to our next episode. We won't tell you what it is, but maybe they should tell us what we should talk about.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. It's so weird
Who would
to
have thought we would be
say
those girls?
that.
Subscribe, like, but for real, do all of that.
Subscribe. Yeah, in the comments, let us know some of the topics that kind of fall within the buckets of things we're going to talk about, but we're kind of open to anything because we're unconventional. So
Yeah.
thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of this journey.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.